G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, and welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the Arsehole? Enjoy. Am I the asshole for not wanting to do Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house without my wife? I, 30 male, feel stupid for even asking. My sister, 29, and my wife, 34, did not have the best history. Before we met, my wife was my sister's landlady and she was renting the room at the back of my wife's house 6 years ago. She got evicted less than 4 months after moving in because my sister did not pay her rent at all. Then she was taken to court for damages that costed way more than she put down at the security deposit. My sister did end up having to pay, but basically hated my wife for this. We met after this all went down, and I went to go pick up my sister's stuff that she left behind that my wife was decent enough not to have thrown out yet. We started chatting and really hit it off. We started dating, and a year and a half later, she got pregnant with our son. We are now happily married, but my sister never took it well. We weren't as close before all this, but after becoming a traitor, in her eyes, we didn't talk much. She hasn't even met my son, who is 3. My parents are really trying to push for us all to have a family Thanksgiving at their place. My sister never wanted to go because I'd be there with my wife, and she didn't want to see me. My parents never pushed it before because they didn't think my sister was being fair, considering the issues she has with my wife were all things she did herself. This year, they feel different though, since my sister broke up with her boyfriend of 6 years, and it's her first holiday without him. She, however, doesn't want to see my son nor wife, so that's why they are asking if they be left at home. My wife doesn't have any other family, and I don't want her and my son missing out because my sister doesn't want them to be there. It's not a problem for me to miss out on dinner with my wife so my sister could have the company and I just stay at home with my own family. My sister is blowing it out of proportion because she wants me there, but I'm being an asshole because she wants the whole family there. Parents are taking her side because it's been a difficult year losing her boyfriend and job, so she just wants one family dinner for Thanksgiving. I get that it's been tough for her. I'm just having a hard time seeing how it's selfish or being inconsiderate to not want to exclude my family. Now in the comments, not the asshole. It's been 6 years and your sister was at fault. Time to grow up and drop the grudge. And the fact that she would hold it against your toddler is ridiculous. If she wants her whole family there, she needs to accept that your wife and child are family, whether she likes it or not. Family doesn't always get along, she needs to deal with that or not expect you there. OP says, it's how I feel too. My wife was the wronged party and she's over it now. I'm sure because my sister was the one who had to pay out of pocket, she feels differently about it, but still, like you said, it's been 6 years. Your parents have clearly babied your sister her whole life if they have allowed this to go on this long. This should have been nipped in the bud years ago, but for some reason, none of you put your foot down with her tantrums. Your responsibility is to your wife and child, end of story. If your parents are going to act this irrationally and bend to your sister's hysterics, it may be time to draw a line in the sand. This is one of those times where taking no side is actually taking a side when one party is so clearly in the wrong. And OP says, for the past few years, they have told her if she doesn't want to be around my family, then she can be excluded from family events. This is the only time they want to do whatever to make her happy because of what has been going on. Your sister and parents can't have it both ways. If parents are wanting to prioritize sister this year, then they need to commit to that. That means accepting Thanksgiving for them this year is just parents and sister, but they cannot demand you pretend you don't have your immediate family now, your wife and son. They are literally demanding you disrespect your wife and child by pretending they don't exist, and your parents and sister are still your only immediate family. That's unfair and unhealthy, and hardly going to help your sister get over her breakup. Call your parents on speaker, ask your mom how she would feel if a couple years into her marriage, your dad had left her to celebrate Thanksgiving with a 3-year-old toddler alone while he celebrated with his real family. Ask your dad if he would treat his life like that, if this is the kind of husband he was raising you to be, and then hang up so they can think about it. And now onto the update. Well, of course I didn't follow along with their ridiculous request. I wasn't about to leave my wife and child at home to have dinner with people who didn't want my family there. It pissed me off like you can't imagine. We had fights prior to the dinner because I couldn't believe my parents were fine with excluding my son from time to spend with them. It bothered me the more I thought about it. Then there was my sister calling that I'm a piece of crap for not being there for her. Honestly, it was so irritating. We went back and forth. I just remember telling her to grow up and stop being a spoiled you-know-what. And, well, she didn't call after that one. We stayed home to have our own Thanksgiving. My son kept asking where Grandma and Grandpa are. I wasn't about to tell him the real reason that we weren't going with them, so we only told him that we're a little sick so we can't go. He still wanted to talk to them. They video chatted for a while and then they could hear my sister in the background. Then they were suddenly in a hurry to end the call. I'm sure she didn't know they were talking to us. I tried to not let that anger me too much so we could all be in a good mood. To the person who suggested a nice pajama Thanksgiving dinner, well, we followed through on that and it was pretty relaxing. My son decided he wanted to go all out with his dinosaur PJs. It was a lovely time. We made a pillow fort after dinner and then my son fell into a food coma, so me and my wife had some alone time too. This was so much better than any dinner with my parents and someone who has no respect for my family. It really left me with a completely different view of them. I know she really is going through something difficult, and my parents are trying to help, but it hurts knowing that they wanted to toss my family to the side to make her happy. For that reason, we won't be spending Christmas with them either, which has been a whole thing too, but oh well, they did this to themselves. We are taking a little family vacation up to the mountains so my son can enjoy the snow. Just to do something fun on Christmas so he doesn't focus on the fact that we are not spending it with his grandparents either. And now in the comments, good for you. I don't understand how in the world your sister expected you to dump your family for her. That is totally ridiculous. And OP replies, it really is honestly. After all these years to still have that grudge over a situation that was no one else's fault but hers. I expect that deep down she's ashamed of how she behaved and wants to forget about what she did, and sees your wife as a reminder of it. Instead of just owning it and seeking forgiveness, she's doubling down and acting like a child, and your parents are indulging her. Coming from someone who has no contact with my mother, I tell my kids a kids-friendly version of the truth. That way no one else can come along and spin lies and turn them against me. For me, it's been. My mum has problems and it makes her mean, and I don't want you guys, my kids, to have her be mean to you. You could explain for Christmas simply that Granny and Pa need to support Auntie right now because she is sad, and Auntie asked not to do celebrations with us this year while she gets better, so we're going to do our own fun things. Sure, it's nicer than what is happening, but at least Kid knows. And OP replies, this is a really good explanation, thank you. It's hard to explain these adult situations to a little kid, and we don't want to necessarily lie to him, but also he obviously can't know what the real reason is. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for offending the bride and groom? So one of my friends, Katie, fake name, is getting married soon, and while hanging out, she mentioned that she'll be sending us her Venmo so that we could pitch in for the wedding. I was confused, so I asked her what she meant. She said that since she and her soon-to-be husband couldn't afford the wedding party, they were requesting for people to cash in as well. I come from a culture where parents usually pay for their kids' weddings, or sometimes the soon-to-be wed do it for themselves or borrow money, which they return back. I was confused, and I asked Kate when she would return the money then, because I really didn't think we were so close as to we could borrow money from each other, and she probably got offended or something over that. My other friend Maya, fake name again, who is also from my culture, then explained to me that it's apparently normal to chip in for your friend's wedding here. I again got confused and somewhat offended, asking if it's a wedding party, why do the guests need to pay then? Kate got really mad and called me an ass for embarrassing her in front of everyone. Her fiancé later called me to say that I really hurt their feelings, and now I am disinvited from the wedding. I'm wondering where I went wrong and if I was being ignorant. Maya is citing this to be some sort of culture shock. Am I the asshole? And how do I fix this? And now in the comments, not the asshole. The audacity of announcing your Venmo to have people pay for a party. The disinvite is a bonus. Now you don't have to throw away money on a gift either. Yeah, I have never heard of a single culture where openly begging for money to host a wedding wasn't tacky and rude. Plan the wedding party that you can afford. Can't afford a wedding celebration? Then get married without the party aspect. Really want the wedding event of your dreams? Then save up for it. Same. I've seen it happen in the US and Canada, but that doesn't mean it's the norm. If you can't afford the wedding you want, you don't get the wedding you want. You gotta make some cuts. It is not normal in the US to make your guests pay for your wedding. Not the arsehole. Yes, please don't perpetuate this rumor. Everyone already thinks that we are running around with guns murdering each other and letting those without healthcare die in the streets. We are, of course, but we don't need this classless rumor circulating. Not the arsehole. Asking questions about a custom that you have never heard of isn't rude. I think it's hilarious that they think not letting you pay for part of their wedding is a punishment to you. In fact, it sounds to me like they're inviting people they barely know to get more money. Now there's an angle. They even invented a societal custom for the foreigner that anybody with access to Google would know was bullcrap. This is all lining up nicely. And now onto the update. Hey everyone, thank you so much for the responses and upvotes and awards. It became pretty clear in the first few comments itself that this was no culture thing or a culture shock. Thank you for explaining, and I am sorry if I offended someone. I have corrected Maya too, and she explained that since she was paying a lot of money for the bachelorette and other bridal party stuff, she figured this must be the norm. Anyways, I didn't call them back, hoping the thing would just pass, but Katie called me and said that she overreacted and invited me back to the wedding. Since a lot of you said that they might be asking for cash instead of a gift, I asked her the same thing. She said that gifts were of course mandatory, but they were asking for some extra help from friends and family to help them kickstart their new journey together. I said I wasn't comfortable in that, because frankly, I am too broke to afford others' weddings. She accepted that and again invited me, but I said that I would rather not after all of this drama, and we ended the call cordially. So that's it. Not very juicy, but at least it's over. Thank you to everyone, and yeah, Maya and I laughed, saying that we really do need better friends. Thank you. And now in the comments, gifts are customary, not mandatory. Katie had a solid apology going until gifts are of course mandatory. OP made the right move in opting not to go. That being said, cash gifts are more normal these days than they were from previous generations. The difference is the couple will put a Cash App or Venmo link on their registry as opposed to basically charging people to attend, which is what Katie made her request sound like. I like the new trend of adding activities to fund on your registry. My sister and wife had options like dinner for two at X place, or ziplining, or evening cocktails. They were able to make things range from about $15 to $200. That's what I want to do when I get married. It would of course be optional though, not even close to mandatory. Glad to hear that it was solved in a rather civil manner. Your friend, Katie, sounds absolutely bonkers, so I think you did the right thing. I hope more people follow your lead. With friends like that, who needs enemies? Thanks for the update. I love updates. It truly amazes me the goal that so many people have in getting married nowadays. Who in the world gives a person the right to expect people to contribute to the expense of their wedding? And absolutely nothing is mandatory. And I don't even know where to start about expecting the maid of honor or the groomsman to spend a buttload of money on your bachelor or bachelorette party. Jeez, people, get a grip. Save up the money you want for a wedding and stop expecting the world to finance this bullcrap. And our next post is titled, "Would I be the arsehole if I left to open my own business?" So I, female 30, am self-employed. I rent a premises from the person, 60 male, who trained me. Let's call him Steve. I have been with Steve and his business for 4 years and qualified in my field a year ago. I began as a trainee. During my training, I began doing treatments at a trainee rate. Steve took half to cover his cost to train me. Upon qualifying, I became self-employed and rent a workspace from Steve, but trade under his business name. I told Steve that I had 2 children and a husband who often travels for business. Steve accepted this and the stipulation that I would need a bit of flexibility and hired me, but Steve became more demanding of my time. Within a few months, I was attending 6 days a week and picking up all the scut work. When I qualified in my field, my husband retired with some savings. We invested in the kit that I needed. This used a large sum of our savings, followed by a pandemic that prevented me from trading. Steve still continues to log all of my income, taking 50% of my self-made income as workspace rent. In the first few months after the quarantine, I was in debt, which I paid off quickly. Due to this, I began getting in debt to Steve for the 50% cut that he wanted. Steve got angry and accused me of stealing money, so Steve began taking an extra cut. I am walking away with only around 25 to 30% of my self-made income. On top of the income issue, Steve expected me to work for him rather than myself despite being self-employed. Steve dictates my work hours, and I must ask permission for time off. Steve expects me every day for his scut work, 6 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. even if I don't have appointments. Whenever I try and reason with Steve and remind him that I have a young family, he reminds me of all he has done for me, and all that he requests in return is loyalty. Recently, it has become more unbearable. I sought help in a financial advisor who calculated that I had paid Steve just shy of $48,000 rent in only 9 months, and explained that I could have my own premises for much less. He found me several rentals I could look at for reference and information to start up my own salon. I called sick today as Steve made my life so miserable. He was bad-mouthing me to colleagues and clients, knowing that I could hear, and even bad-mouthing my husband, calling him an asshole. I am a bit of a pushover, and I didn't speak up for myself. He claims because I had stolen from him by being late with invoices, he can't trust me, and I had to work harder to prove that I was trustworthy enough for him. Steve always reminds me I owe him my career, and all he asks for in return is loyalty. Would I be the asshole to leave in spite of this, and start myself as a competitor of the business who trained me? After all, I wouldn't have my qualifications if he hadn't hired me to begin with. And now in the comments, not the asshole. Steve is obviously taking advantage of you at this point. You deserve better than that. Not the asshole. You owe Steve nothing. You paid for your training. He didn't help you at all. Does a college graduate have to bend over backwards a year later to help their former professor grade tests? There honestly sounds like several illegal actions being taken here, and that you may want to document and consult a lawyer about. But the short version is that he is treating you almost like an indentured servant. Aside from the illegal elements of this, one has not done you a favor if they then spend years asking you to pay them back, especially if they're asking you to do more for them than they had initially done for you. That is just an unfair transaction. Would you accept it if the grocery store charged you $8 for a $4 gallon of milk because they did you the favor of selling you the milk in the first place? Not the asshole times 100. In the UK, the tax office has criteria for deciding whether you are an employee or genuinely self-employed. Someone setting your work hours, managing your work, etc. makes you an employee. Legally here, you could sue him for sick pay, holiday pay, etc. on the grounds that you are actually an employee, plus many other possible violations like minimum wage, working hours, etc. Get your own premises and forget about him. If he carries on hassling you, get a lawyer to send him a cease and desist letter. And now on to the update. After reading the comments on my previous post, I decided it would be in my best interests to start the process of opening my own place. I did this discreetly, knowing Steve would have been furious if he knew of my plan to go solo. I planned to continue renting until I had managed to secure my rental and upgrade it to the standard needed to open. However, I got very sick with an ongoing infection which wouldn't shift. My doctor believes due to burnout from working 6 days a week for so long without a break. Yes, Steve was aware I was sick but didn't offer any respite to cover. My doctor sent me for emergency treatment at hospital, at which point I was forced to take time off sick. I was told firmly that I needed at least 2 weeks. That wasn't accepted graciously, and I was bombarded with messages and calls demanding info of my recovery and expected return from the second day of my absence, bearing in mind I am meant to be self-employed with no legal requirement to inform anyone of my recovery. The final straw came when I got a phone call just as I had come out from a minor surgery, still a surgery, and was quizzed about my health. I was groggy and confused and scolded for not replying to a message Steve had sent me the day prior. Honestly, I didn't notice the message. I was genuinely sick and have an underlying chronic condition which extends my recovery time generally. I was visibly upset and my husband witnessed the call. Being too weak and upset to address it, my husband decided enough was enough and phoned Steve to be met with an accusation that the situation was my fault for not responding to a message. He asked someone to collect my belongings, most of my expensive equipment we invested into from our savings, and my qualification certificates missing, and I left there and then. Steve has refused to return my property and the certificates, but I don't even care. I'm free and can replace the equipment and get copies of my certificates. Just a small update and a genuine thank you for all of the wonderful advice on my previous post. And another update, I got my belongings back. And with that said, that is where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed this one. As always, I do hope you're having a bloody good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.